I'd say the biggest thing with delts is understanding that it's not a very large muscle. The outside of your hand is where a good chunk of your grip comes from. But when things get a little hairy, we forget about those fingers. I just kept my shoulders pinned back. Um, it was supposed to give me healthier shoulders, and it did the exact opposite for me personally.
So I want to kick things off talking about shoulder training. It's now been over 25 years since you picked up your first muscle magazine in 1999. Many intermediate lifters have lagging delts, even though they're progressing on the shoulder press and they're spamming lateral raises. So, what advice do you have for these recreational lifters whose goal is to blow up their delts this year?
Mm. Well, I think personally that's the if there is one body part on men that can just absolutely change like the look of your physique, it's delts. Like I strongly believe this from the moment I set foot in the gym. That's like, why is everyone so infatuated with like pecs? Like it's in here, but like this makes you grow like in this way in a very pretty enhancing your silhouette, so making your waist smaller, sort of like good delts can be sometimes have people not even look at your legs. They're just like, oh shoot, like you don't even like look to see that this dude has like terrible calves. Um, so yeah, they're distracting. They can be stubborn if they're stubborn. Like all body parts, right? If you're just genetically blessed in that area, you probably don't have to do too much out of the ordinary. Um, but I'd say the biggest thing with delts is understanding that it's not a very large muscle. Um, and again, like the overhead press, like this is something someone will mention this, like there is a little bit of like medial out there, and it's like, yeah, if that tissue on you is very sensitive to stimulus, like all it takes is a little flick and it's gonna grow. But that's just not the case for most people. So yeah, lateral raises with the appropriate amount of patience. Like it's almost like with isolation work for the side delts, it's almost like barbecuing. Like you can't rush it. It needs to be low and slow. So yeah, biggest thing is you're not going to use a whole lot of weight. You might not be using exercises where the side delt is being lengthened, and not only is it lengthened, but the majority of the torque is taking place in that position. So things with cables, like going across your body, wrist height, going behind the back, wrist height, maybe a little bit lower, maybe like mid hamstring, but somewhere in there. And then just picking loads that honestly they look terrible. Like like you might barely make the cutoff where you can use load on some lateral raise machines. Like you might be at the first ring. And then just you have to be careful with your body English. I think that's something people forget because there's all these joints and muscles underneath the delts that it's very easy to contaminate the movement with a knee twitch and not realize it. And this is something that
Mhm.
becomes a bigger and bigger issue as you become a bigger and stronger human being. So the bigger and stronger you are, the more you're gonna have to catch things like your hips, like your knees, like your rib cage, because it's very easy to, just kind of do this, not realize the amount of force that you can apply to a movement, totally contaminate it, call it a PR, move on, and then before you know it, it's like, man, I've been hitting all these PRs, moving up on weight, but my delts still kind of look the same. So with Delta, this is where someone like Jeff Alberts would be great to watch because it's like the rest of his body's just like silent, and he's really good at just getting that tissue to do the work. Because Jeff might look weak, man, but in his prime, like man, he could have been so strong. Like if in his orthopedic prime, if he just wanted to lift things from point A to point B, like people don't realize, like he's intentionally like just holding that muscle to the fiber. So that's the hard part with delts is holding the muscle to the fiber and not letting human nature take over where you just want to send it every week.
Yeah, I know the first time I did the behind the back with cables and a cuff, like my medial delt was sore for like 24 hours after. And I was like, this is new. Like, this hasn't happened in a while.
Yeah, yeah. They just don't get like everyday life doesn't do that for the delts really, right? Like when are you actually doing it? It's kind of like pec. muscles. Like they don't really get loaded in everyday life. Like when people tear a pec and they can't train it, like those just atrophy, say, compared to legs. But yeah, delts, like when do we like move, like we don't, not with load. So if you haven't tried that, it's one of those things where it's like try it, be patient for a year, like don't try to cut corners with progressions, and it's very likely that you'll see some really obvious delt growth.
And how do you know for that exercise specifically, let's say like in front of your body with cables, like what is the full range of motion? So like for example, I can be very confident that I'm at the lengthened position, but like do you go like up here? Do you go all the way up here? I feel like that's kind of a challenge. Like what is the full range to stimulate that muscle?
Yeah, so um this is kind of determined by where you are facing relative to the cable. So like with me, I've been doing this movement long enough where it is like straight up behind me now. It used to be more to the side. And
Mhm.
because it's straight up behind me, there's so much more torque and load in the beginning parts of the movement, but it runs out very quickly, more or less when like the cable is about to hit your body. That's kind of when it's done.
Okay.
So for me, coming from behind me, it's like right around here, which feels like so wrong. But if I keep going, first of all, I can't because the cable's gonna get caught in my own body, but the low drop off is very obvious. So you will, if you're paying attention to what you're doing, you will find that there's a place where it's just redundant. The load really drops off. You can do it if you like, but a lot of people, as they gain traction with this movement and the feel for it, and as the weights get heavier, like um, you can taste that strength curve, the resistance profile a little bit more. So it's up to you. It's kind of like pressing. It's like, hey, some people like to lock out, some people don't. Just totally up to you. But eventually, as things get heavier, you will be able to very quickly realize like where you lose it. It's up to you whether you want to lock out or not. You could do other things to train the fully shortened position of the delt. Things like dumbbells or a lot of machines will do that for you.
And what should people understand about biomechanics for the lateral delt so they can perform the movements better?
Um, Man, that I think, unlike, say, our hips, say compared to other primates, right? Like our hips are kind of boring. They're just for like bipedal walking. So there isn't a whole lot of options in regards to like directions that like you can kind of rotate your feet around your hip. But with the shoulder socket, there's just, I mean, think of certain throwing sports, right? Like they come from all angles. So there's so much freedom here that um it's just understand that it's probably important that you record yourself because it's very quick. It's very easy to do things that you don't even realize you are doing in regards to the path of the motion. Like yesterday, I'm having an issue right now with I think my left side I tend to shrug up, and then this one stays all nice and packed like my right side. So just know there's many ways to mess things up. So record yourself. That helps so much. Highly underrated. I think a lot of people see folks recording in the gym, and it's like, oh, they're trying to make it out in like fitness Hollywood, right? But it's a tool that to this day, like I teach the movement every day, and I will catch myself slipping if I don't record. So that's the biggest thing. I think is like record yourself, have a fundamental understanding of like what we're trying to do biomechanically, and ensure that those joints are moving and other things are not moving. But I will say this, going back to the patience thing, like it's very easy to cause harm with these movements because we've just never trained them in those directions. So the rotator cuff is going to be just stressed in different ways. So I think especially once you get rolling with your cable lateral raises behind the back across the body, just be patient. Like me behind the back, I have to be super patient. Across my body, oh, I can hammer that all day. But back here, some reason just I have to be extra cautious. So yeah, just be cautious because your rotator hasn't been trained in those directions, right? And it's small as much as it is a smaller muscle, it's probably bigger than it was when it first started. So you should, yeah, pace yourself with that the first few weeks.
Okay. And you've talked about things like putting yourself in the mid-scapular plane. What does that mean for someone who has no clue, what that means, and
Yeah.
why is that the right plane to be in?
So I'm glad that I don't have to mention this nearly as much because this is for dumbbell lateral raises, which again, I don't think it's a movement you completely throw out. Like I love the idea of using shortened movements before the lengthened movements because I think one, the shorten just fatigues really quick relative to
Mhm.
the lengthened. So you kind of get that out the way. But also, you can get some really good pumps when you're performing shortened movements. And sometimes, like someone who has an issue hinging, it's like, let me put them on the glute bridge, hip thrust.
Mhm.
Okay, now they have a glute pump. Now they're finally hinging, right? Because they know where their hips are at in space because they can feel it. So with dumbbell lateral raises, usually people are out here to the sides. Um, where you want to be is it's in the mid scapular plane, and the best way to determine what that is, it kind of feels like a flick, like you can flick into this space, right? So it's like where you would intuitively throw a jab, like that's like you can't really throw a good jab out here. This feels like just bizarre and weird, and that's where most people perform the dumbbell lateral raise. So you kind of want it not in front of you like a front raise, not directly to the side, but there's this big space somewhere in the middle. And easiest way to get there is just do the little flick test. That's what it should feel like.
I like that, the flick test. Okay. And then if you're selecting a machine for your medial delt, um, do you have any tips on how to select a good machine? I know you've talked about machines that place the load on the humerus. Like, just like, how do you think about exercise selection from a machine standpoint? Like, what makes a good machine?
So I'm not a big fan of the ones where it's like you've got these handles and they're kind of set at a certain height. Like sometimes they don't match like your own arm length, right? So to me, it's like this is like a bizarre version of the cable, a
Okay.
worse version. So I would probably, because we're talking about machines, I think cables, especially for side delts, that's where it's at. That's where you're going to do the majority of your cooking. But there's also, yeah, some really good machines, the ones where you can put the load on your humerus. Um, I like this because again, the delt attaches like right into the humerus, right? So
Mhm.
to have a contraption like so many joints away, it's just another thing to manage when you think about it, right? So it puts it as far away as it needs to be. So imagine if a I don't know leg extension was on your toes instead of like the shin,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? So it takes care of that, but sometimes the strength curve on these things, again, is kind of a mismatch of what we want. It's easier to start, harder to finish, right? So you have to pay attention to the direction of the cam, or if you don't want to do just feel it out very quickly. It'll tell you. So a lot of these machines, they're great because they put you in the mid scap. They have the load where it needs to be, but yeah, you probably will have to go to full ROM failure and then proceed into partial so that you can again tickle the more lengthened bit of the range of motion, ensure that that part goes to failure.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about like lateral raises. Is that enough to grow your shoulders, or what else would you suggest someone do if that's their main focus for this year?
Shoot, I guess it depends on how bad you wanted, um, because this is where a lot of that volume work like comes in handy. A lot of those studies that everyone just refuses to believe was good science. Like this is where it comes in handy. It's like there's that body part that like you really want to just open up, say later this year on Christmas morning. Uh, okay, that's where you kind of become a specialist in that thing. Like you and I both love basketball, right? And
Yeah,
there's a huge discrepancy between like a professional dunker and an NBA player because they're focused on different things, right? It's
for
like what do you
sure.
specialize in? Long drivers in golf, right? So this is where you become a specialist and you can absolutely train your body to withstand a lot of stimulus, not just at the muscular level, but also when it comes to connective tissue. So, uh, what would guarantee someone get delta? That's really what they want. What I would do is probably like train the heck out of that thing. Like slowly, I don't know, like increase volume over the course of the year until maybe you are at the point where you are hitting, a beyond 20 sets of direct like medial delt work.
What do you think about things like myo reps or rest pause for medial delts? That way you're not like every set getting to like 15 or 20 and doing straight sets.
Yeah, this is where the size principle is something that I just think it's, speaking of remedial things that all bodybuilders should know. It's like we kind of intuitively know this, but we know that those hard reps, those are the ones that like you experience those, you overcome those, eventually you'll see something, it will add up to something good down the road. Like we know this. But like if you understand exactly what's taking place like below the hood, it's just very hard, at least for me at this point, to perform my isolation work in any other way. Because when you do start a set of 8 to 12, the first half of that set is slow twitch muscle fibers, the ones kind of in the middle, and then eventually, not until you get closer to failure, does your body bring in all the fast twitch muscle fibers, the ones that have the most potential for growth and strength. So it's almost like those are buy-in reps just to get to that point. And what myo reps do for you is you kind of just get to, you don't have to restart that process once again. So it's like you do your first set with like the buy-in reps, and then you get to those high threshold motor units. All right, you tickle those for a bit, sets over, you rest long enough so that when you get back into that set, you feel like you're in the tail end of that dogfight once again. So it kind of sucks while you're in it because you're like, man, I'm just stuck here for the next 2.5, 3 minutes, but you're done, and you save so much time. You save a lot of reps over the course of a workout, which for especially people who are dieting, like this matters. Um, so yeah, they're a great tool. They're kind of weird at first because I think the biggest pushback is like, well, how do I track it?
Yeah.
It's
How do
the
you track it?
progress. But it's like just the first one, the buy-in set, the activation set. So if it's
Okay.
like a 10 to 15, it's like just keep track of that one. And if that one's continuously like going up, we're adding reps, adding load eventually, that's a good sign that that and everything else after is enough, is the right amount of stimulus. Um,
So I'm being way
it's
too anal that I'm tracking every set. So thanks. That's
yeah,
good
yeah,
to
because
know.
sometimes you know how it goes. Like I figured this out whenever
I
I was
got 4
doing.
last time and now I only got 3. Did I, it's like then you're overthinking it sometimes when you don't need to.
Well, like I remember squatting, and like I hit a PR today, and then I just knew that like afterwards I learned to accept the fact that my leg extensions were just going to be trash, right? So the same thing within these myo rep sets, whereas like if your activation is like you were getting 11 12s, and then all of a sudden it's like boom, 15 today. Like where did that come from? I don't know, but I'll take it. All those myo rep sets afterwards are going to be complete garbage, right?
Yeah,
But you're fine with that because you got what you wanted. So it was that first set was an immense amount of stimulus.
for sure. And then when you're doing behind the back, is that working your the posterior head of your delt as well, or are you doing different exercises for that?
Yeah, there's so much variation to how muscles attach on people. Like, so much. It's kind of insane. Like you look at enough peeled bodybuilders, you're like, oh, that's an interesting way of growing that. But same thing with the belt. There's some that, they're strictly just side delts, but a lot of them kind of have they're working overtime. They're helping the neighbor over here, and then some that are helping the one, the rear delt. So yeah, behind the back is going to be a little bit more of the anterior, so this is more in line. And then when you go across the body, it's going to be a little bit more of the rear delt. Um, but there's so much like different things to play with. Like it doesn't have to look exactly the same like every single time. Like sometimes they'll make a small adjustment. A few blocks ago, I was a little bit higher like this, and I could feel that it was a little bit more reared out, and then just moved a little bit. And do these things matter? I don't know. I certainly think they do, or at the very least, they matter from an orthopedic standpoint, right? Like sometimes you're on a leg press, and like this stance, my usual stance feels horrible, but if I open it up or close it up a little bit, I'm able to get through the work. So sometimes your body is trying to tell you things that, hey, like let's change this just a little bit, just because we're still, again, the good old bottleneck, the connective tissue.
I think what's cool about how you just explained that is like you're wise enough to make like an audible. Like you can just make that call in real time without overthinking and saying, well, the plan wasn't exactly like this. I think you kind of find that right balance between structure and then the art of bodybuilding to know to make those adjustments.
Yeah, yeah, I think all sports you do this, man. But like bodybuilding, for some reason, like it's a big no-no. Whether it's on like when it comes to the training, when it comes to the nutrition. Like I want to get all my guys to the point, especially when prepping. Like when you would think you'd have to be like really perfect and on point, where our caloric ranges are so broad. And I'm like, all right, this is the play you're running. But like when you get under that center and you look at the defense, you decide at the end, like what is best. So this is where you eventually want to get athletes. I think the first place people earn is loads because you kind of have no choice when it comes to load selection at the gym. It's like, yeah, I usually do 225, but today it absolutely stapled me. So I'm not going to do that. They'll speak to you loudly. But there's all these other things that I think people can be doing they can be auto-regulating, they could be dynamic with that would, if anything, like help them get to the bottom line, get what they want in a much more efficient manner. um, but also it serves you well during times where maybe you can't be perfect because someone who knows how to play that game, like if you're this stretch of life where you can't be as in point as you'd like to be for whatever reason, you kind of understand the power of 80%, but also uh you know how to leverage like what you can do based on like what opportunities you do have available at that point in time. So yeah, it's weird, but bodybuilders, auto regulation, it's like, dude, every other sport like benefits from it. Like we could do.
It's true. Every other sport, the whole idea is that you've learned so much from trial and error and watching tape and everything that you should be able to just make that real-time decision. Like there should be no thinking. It should just be instinct at that point.
Yep, exactly.
All right. So I want to move to talk about chest training. You've provided some great insight on things like moving your head forward when benching and also understanding what type of pec you have. How does an intermediate lifter break out of a chest plateau um, using without just piling on junk volume?
Mm. um Man, there's so many options here. I think one of my favorite options for, say, someone who's early intermediate, let's say, right,
Yeah.
um, is to just get strong. Like, just get strong. And this is where, again, I always see the errors in my sport. Surely there's drama and political stuff going on, and I don't know, and ping pong too. I don't see it. I'm not that deep into it. Um, but when it comes to like bodybuilding and powerlifting, there's just certain things that I'm like, you guys can kind of like borrow from each other, and it would be very useful. Especially again when we're talking like drug free. And one thing that has really changed the sport of drug free powerlifting is just more lift frequency, especially for those lifts that the upper body, I guess the only upper body lift, the bench press, where most elite level powerlifters, so long as they're not like super big dudes, um, but still jacked individuals, they're benching anywhere from 3 to 5 times a week, right? Some people do even more. It's quite insane. So it's like just practicing that stroke, especially when it comes to pressing movements where you are kind of balancing the weight, I think is something that it's so underrated, so underrated. So frequent pressing along with maybe some heavy singles and not like max out like every week, but like a single with a weight you could have done for like 3 reps.
Okay.
Like it is so crazy how like that is the main thing that powerlifters have been leveraging the last few years is they hit these singles at RPE 8, then they do their back off work, and they do this during a good chunk of the year on basically all the lifts. But this is it's changed the sport basically. Um, and the reason I go with strength rather than like, hey, let's get directly into exercise selection or volume,
Yeah.
is because I think especially for newer folks that, you know, again, early intermediates, it's really good to make these people feel strong. So when you have a lift with like it has like cultural value, a bench press, for
It
example,
definitely has cultural value. Every time I go to the gym, I see the cultural value happening.
right? Right. Like I should do bench and three plates. I hate a little, man. I'm like back in my day, but I mean it. Back in my day, I could have, but not no more. But yeah, so your first two plate bench, something that like most dudes never forget. Most women never forget the first time they touch like body weight. So that or just like triple digits on the dumbbells. So I think strength is something that, as much as people who are mostly into physique sports will say that I'm not a power lifter. Like we all take pride in our lifts that we're decently strong in, right? Like it's showtime when we get to perform these things. So for an early intermediate, I'd definitely say like, hey, get strong. Like it's gonna just build you up in ways outside of just muscle. Um, but outside of that, I think for pecs, yeah, a lot of it is gonna come down to genetics, like everything else, the structure of your rib cage. Um, where do you have the vast majority of your muscle fibers? Like, what strategy did your body? I guess it wouldn't, can't say it intentionally came up with it, but like you look at a guy like Franco Colombo, like his upper pecs are so just like almost vertical, doing the exact same thing as the sternal almost, and they're super thick. So anything he does is uh is going to involve a lot of upper pec. And you have someone like me with just much thinner strands that are a little bit more vertical. So I have a longer pec.
Yeah.
Like I can't do one motion to cover everything. Like I probably will need some level of exercise variety, and through trying many things, eventually determine which things are yielding the look that I desire.
Yeah, that's interesting in terms of just some people can get away with the one exercise because of the direction and the shape of the fibers compared to someone else who doesn't have that, might have to use more exercises and more trial and error.
Calves, perfect example of this, right? It's like some people just got to walk on earth and they're good, right? Because the way the belly is shaped, and all muscles are kind of that way. But calves are the one that like just it blows your mind. Sometimes you will you'll see some dudes that all they did was like become really heavy, and they have calves that look like they belong on the IFBB Pro, right?
I know
Um,
people who don't work out that have massive calves.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
just like big guys with big calves, and that's just what's
That
up.
yeah, that's all they did was just walk.
Live life. And I know for chess, you mentioned that like there was a time where you really kept your shoulder blades back and you were actually doing it and it was not the greatest. And I think you saw like someone like Bryce Lewis kind of just letting them do their thing. And I'm just curious your thoughts on that in terms of just being a little bit more loose than strict on that movement.
Yeah, I don't know when. I think it was my first PT certification where that was really drilled into me. And prior to that, I'd always press, just press, right? Like your scapula will do what it needs to do. You know, you do this even with no weight. It's kind of retracting and gliding upwards, and then as you push your hands forward, it's spreading. Like you could see the scapula do this, like when people wave high, like it knows what to do, right? Um, so yeah, for years, once I learned that, I just ingrained it in me, and that's literally what I did. I just kept my shoulders pinned back. Um, it was supposed to give me healthier shoulders, and it did the exact opposite for me personally. Um, I do think there's a time and a place for that cue, but it's probably very person specific. Like someone who's really just staying protracted for some odd reason, like when they're bench pressing or doing any form of chest press. But eventually you just get strong enough where you can't even do that anymore. Like this whole, like I've never seen a YouTube video, those dark things we see of like gym injuries of like someone like protracting and then like shoulder coming off. That's never happened, right? We've seen freakier things, like I guess things that you would warrant to be way less likely happen more frequently, like compound fractures on bench press of like the forearms. I don't know if you've peeped those that just come out of nowhere, but Yeah, eventually you get strong enough where like having forward shoulders is not even an option unless you have this incredibly strong serratus anterior for some reason. So yeah, with the shoulders, I've just kind of learned to just kind of like let them do their thing. And if anything, when I'm warming up for my exercises, that's what I try to groove. It's not just like my humerus doing its thing in the planes that I want it to move in, but also having my scapula kind of just dance around my rib cage and getting that thing ready to move the way it needs to. But for years I did it and I actually did it. Like a lot of people would say they do it, but they don't do it.
Yeah.
And like I said, it wasn't until I saw Bryce because sometimes you got to see really gifted people just move and observe them do their thing because sometimes they can't even fully explain to you what they're doing. But he would always explain um, the hey, shoulders back, scapula down, and then I see this dude just grab his like 500-pound bench and the most casual thing and doesn't even think about it, and that's not what's going on. I'm like light bulb moment, but this goes against like current dogma at this point.
I was
And
gonna
what?
say it can be hard, right? Because the entire tribe is saying like this is how you have to do it. Like it's hard to actually go against that because you have the pressure of being a bodybuilder and trying to be successful and be the best, and to go away from what everyone's saying, I just imagine that must be a challenge. But like we were talking about other sports, like I actually spoke to Jeff about this. Like Clay Thompson has the better 3-point shot technically than Steph Curry, but no one's going to tell Steph Curry to change his form. Like it works.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things, man, where I think if you're in doubt, at least ask the question, right? Because at the very least, it's going to be a good question. And this just takes me back to math class, like when teachers explaining something, and you're like, I really don't get this, and you're like, but I feel like I'm the only one. And then eventually becomes very clear that we all were kind of on the same page. We got lost. So yeah, all it really takes is someone speaking up and someone asking a really good question. I think that's a super important part of like learning, not just as a collective, but like for us individually. It's just ask. Like eventually, yeah, you kind of get you don't mind asking the dumb question, I guess.
Yeah, sometimes when you're in a large group, everyone has the question, but no one asks it because there's like social proof in the room where it's like, well,
Yeah.
if all these people I respect aren't asking the question, then I shouldn't ask it because I'm clearly missing something. And everyone might be thinking the same thing. So you actually end up like fooling the whole group when you wouldn't fool the individual.
Yeah, no, and honestly, in my experience, some of the like dumbest questions end up being some of the best questions. It's like, oh, yeah, you're just viewing this from a very like different way, and we should cover that. And it's like, especially for someone like me who like, if you're in the fitness industry, you just better get used to repeating the same stuff like over and over and over and over again. So it just gives me like this path I haven't been down in at least a while. So I appreciate those cues.
All right, I'm gonna throw out some stuff you've said in the past. Give me your first take on it. So the first one here is it's important to gamify your training a little bit. We all like to learn and progress better when we're having fun.
Yeah, this plays to um, just the human emotion side of things, but also some cultural things as well. Um, Like that's the one thing I see, especially with like UK bodybuilders, natural bodybuilders specifically. Like they're all kind of on the same page. They're all kind of playing the same game. They all like bring their logbooks. They have these staple movements that they truly believe in. Um, uh, they have they dress very differently from us, but like this is part of the uniform to get in, and it works. It works. It absolutely works. Like you've bought into this game without necessarily knowing so. Um, so especially for a sport where, man, like it's just a lot of the same stuff every day. It's so different from other sports, right? Because basketball, tennis, you're constantly improvising. You don't know what you're going to see out there. Whereas like with this, it's a lot of the same stuff. It's a lot of like eating broccoli and chicken, not just like outside of the gym, but also in the gym. So to find ways to just spice it up, to kind of doll up this room in a way that you enjoy, that gives you good energy, that taps into the emotion, to the emotional side of you, I think is something that's super underrated. I mean, some of the best coaches, like that's sometimes they don't even have the best methods. They just really know how to get the most out of their players. Um, so we kind of have to coach ourselves up in that way too by, making sure that it's a fun and engaging work environment, that it's not just strictly business, which oddly enough, like when you start doing that, especially with the people who need it the most, the people who like they just want to do everything like optimal per what it is right now, this moment. When you get them to focus a little bit more on the fun, it is insane how much better that that childlike version of themselves like progresses. And I mean, makes sense to me. I mean, that's why I think children are just so much more adaptive and they learn so much faster. It's because like everything is a game to them. Like nothing is serious. There is no ego. They just they're just writing on the walls, like literally. So I think adults need a little bit more of that. They need a little bit more recess when it comes to their body composition goals. You just got to figure out like what that's going to look like, because it will vary a lot from person to person.
Do you think it's because some people take themselves too seriously, or do you think they just want it so bad that they want to follow all the best practices and optimize everything?
I think it's a combination of both those. They take themselves too seriously. They really want this. Um, they've seen how, I think as adults at some point we all understand how systems, we need them, right? But at the same time, it's like, hey, like you can stay within the system and like just have fun a little bit. We man, we forget what it's like to. And actually, no, backtrack. There's this shirt that I have. It says expert beginner,
I see now.
which I will wear to places where there is like grumpy old men who are pretty high up their hierarchy. So I wore it at a rodeo the other day, just because all the old cowboys, like, they would come up to me and they're like, "Dude, like that's I know exactly what you mean." I'm like, "I know you do. I know you do," because people want to rush into like proficiency, right? When like again, in reality, it's like put the ego down. At the end, this isn't super important. It really is. Like a lot of the things we think are important, they're really not at the end, man. All the things that I thought were important reasons to bodybuild, like that's not why I do it anymore at all. um but yeah, getting yourself into that mode of like, I'm just a child. I'm open to learning, to messing up, uh, to having fun. Like that is like first, second, and third. You take care of that, man. It's like everything else just kind of falls into place. Um, like that's why a lot of people who have been successful, and yeah, there's a large genetic component to it, but a lot of the people who you see are getting to their goals or close to their goals or at least heading in the right general direction, they're having an absolute blast when it comes to their bodybuilding. That's the one thing you'll see that they have in common.
For sure. I think there's like a saying which is like, do what feels like play to you, but feels like work for others. And like that's just a good way to stay on track. If you're playing and having fun, you can spend 10, 20, 30 hours on something and it doesn't feel like a chore. But if the other person feels like it's work, after half an hour, they're going to need a break because they're burnt out. So people want the goal, but if you can achieve it in a way that feels fun and playful, and it's going to be hard at times, obviously, like I can't sugarcoat that, but if the system and the process is something you're curious about and it feels like play, you're more likely to stick with it long term, and you're also more likely to learn and find insights that other people don't have.
As much as CrossFit just gets shit, like that's the one thing they've done right. Like the adults get there and they're ready for the recess. They're ready for their escape. to do something they've never done before, hopefully to just play really hard. So yeah, that piece, you get that together, you identify what that is, because sometimes we forget what we actually find fun as adults. Like it's very easy to get yourself to that point, especially when it comes to training, and especially when you've been designing it in such a way for years where it hasn't taken that into consideration. It's like, well, shoot, I've never been asked this question. Like, what do I do with this? Right? It's a variable that it isn't accounted for. It's not intensity. It's not volume. It's completely abstract, and a lot of people don't know where to start. What I'd say is like backtrack and just go back to the times that you were having the best time at the gym, right? Like, and what were you doing, and what would your highlight reel look like, and so do more of those things.
Yeah, so it's really funny. I had someone at the gym ask if they could train arms with me because I have like an arms day. So I did it. I did like a variation of it. And he almost felt like he was like cheating on his program. He's like, that was so much fun. I worked out so hard, but I do PPL. And I was like, that's good, man. I was like, I'm glad, but like, hopefully you learned something here. Hopefully we had a good time. It was a
Yeah.
great time. He pushed himself hard. He pushed me hard. And you could just tell though, it was kind of like breaking his system. Um, but he was having a good time and he pushed himself really hard. It's like, if you enjoy this, I'm not saying you have to do it exactly the same, but figure it out, right? Like you've been doing PPL for the last 9 years. You can change it if you want to.
Years. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That's one dude that can use a little fun. Yeah. No, I try to have at least one or two. I'm good at eating broccoli and chicken at this point, like literally. But even then, I try to have one or two things in my program that like their main purpose is just because
Sanity.
I love doing them. There might be better options, but I like doing it or doing it this way.
All right. Next one is a progressive overload hack. You said be hyper aware of the middle finger, the index finger, and the thumb, but less so for the other two fingers. If you don't focus on those other two fingers, it'll give you a flimsy grip, which is going to lead to negatively impact motor unit recruitment. What are your thoughts on that? Is that like something people should be thinking about?
Yeah. So this is why, like, in anything you do, there needs to be periods of exploring and then periods of exploiting, right? So this is like from other hobbies, but yeah, I learned that, hey, guess what? Like the outside of your hand is where a good chunk of your grip comes from. But when things get a little hairy, we forget about those fingers. And a very simple example is just, again, just grab your wrist using your thumbs, your pointer finger, and your middle finger, and squeeze.
Yeah.
And then, all right, okay, see what that feels like. Okay, now bring in those other two digits, and
Yeah.
there's this huge
Huge
difference.
difference. Yeah.
And this is what ends up happening when we get into those grindy reps. Is if you pay close attention next time you do find yourself to that point where you're like 8 RPE or above, start checking the outside of your hand, and you'll see that it kind of goes flimsy at a certain point. So it's something that I do on, yeah, basically anything that's above a 7 RPE is like I start checking in with the outside of my hand, and this helps me both on the concentric and on the eccentric. On the eccentric, helps me just stay in that groove that I want to stay in, because whatever takes place in the eccentric you will inherit on the concentric. So I don't just press on it during the concentric. I do it during the eccentric, especially on a press, because you really inherit things there, right? It's like where it lands is you're gonna have to deal with that on the way up. So 7 RPE and up, check the outside of your hand, and you'd be surprised. Like at the very least, usually what ends up happening is you see technical PRs where it's like, oh, you stayed in your groove a little bit more. That dumbbell that kind of goes, you know, rogue on you didn't quite do it as much this time. But just as often, you will see people um, get reps that they didn't think they'd get. They're like, I thought I was done. I got two more. And if you get really good at it, and this is something, again, like high level powerlifters know to do, is just like crush the bar, especially on bench presses. Um, you will get very good at it quickly. So the newbie gains, and you will see a little burst of strength over time. Um, so yeah, in the past, before I picked up that it was just mostly these fingers, I would just squeeze the whole hand, uh, which was kind of a waste of energy because the inside of the hand usually stays pretty alive. But when I started doing this for powerlifting like decades ago, saw a huge difference like right away. Like within a few weeks, I'm like, oh man, like it's really I feel much more alive, much more connected. My eccentric and centric are better. But now it's just the outside of the hand, and it's usually something that I don't do until like I'm in the late segments of the set because you don't want to be doing that from like rep one, like when, you know.
Yeah, I think what I love about that is you can like apply that immediately if you listen to this. It's not like some big strategic thing. And you can also like review like recent film and sets you've done and kind of pay attention to the hands and seeing if you're loosening up like that pinky, for example, on the grindier reps.
Yeah, and it's crazy. People who are just like stronger, much more explosive naturally, like if you put them on a one of those dynamometers, like they measure your grip, it is crazy what you get out of them, and they're not even thinking about it. So this kind of puts you in a place where, yeah, because we're always trying to keep up with those freaks, those people who this just comes very naturally to. So it's like, this is what they do. They just don't realize they're doing it. I remember giving Jeff actually a dynamometer. This was found one in a CrossFit gym we were training at in Austin, and just relax and chill, just pulls, and he's like right at about 200. Like,
Crazy.
like didn't even really even think about it. I'm like, he probably could have gotten like 230, 240 if he really wanted to. So yeah, yeah. And for me, I'm like here struggling like to get 180, but yeah, yeah. I lift like a genetic freak or someone who's got a very sports or strength specific nervous system. Like, don't forget about your outer hands.
Jokes. All right, next one here. If you can progress the first few weeks of a fat loss diet, chances are you're running a pretty sound resistance program.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, the first few weeks, or there's the first 2 weeks where realistically you shouldn't really notice a difference, and you're so amped up about your fat loss phase that even if it was a poor program and or the nutritional plan was much too assertive, you would do just fine. Just because, again, excitement, gamifying things, it carries us further than we think sometimes. Um, but yeah, once you get past that phase and it's like, okay, now I'm starting to feel the diet a little bit. If you're for the most part able to train in a way where you feel closest to off season levels, so maybe the progressions aren't as fast, but they're still kind of happening. Um, and eventually that progress will turn into like this holding period where you're progressing, you just don't realize it because you're losing weight but the loads are staying the same on the exercises. To me, that's progress when you think about it. It's just you can't
From like a
outpace.
relative weight standpoint.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there is a point if you go fast deep enough into a fat loss phase where there is like performance decay, but but this just takes experience. Like, what that pace should look like for you, right? This is too fast of a decay. This is about what I should expect. And again, it doesn't mean that we're that there is less mechanical tension taking place because we had to remove 10% from this exercise. It just means that this is what you need now to kind of equate for the size and mass from your body that you have lost. Um, but yeah, the first month should be relatively the same. Otherwise, something is wrong. I will say this because it's been a hot topic of late, that the whole like, do you even need a surplus to grow or not? Um, so you do. It's just not very big, right?
Sure. It's hard to see.
And I mean, think about it. When you're going through a fat loss phase, it's like you train an area. Okay, good session, beat it up, feel it the next day. But by the time you get to that session again, it's ready to go, right? So if you can do this while not at maintenance. Like there's a deficit. Like your body's using a lot of endogenous stored fuel to power this adaptation. If your body can do it with a 500 calorie deficit and perhaps leaner than they would like to be, then that really brings up the question, well, how much do we need to have a net gain? And it's not nearly as much as people think. Because even muscle maintenance, if you look at it, what's actually taking place in the human body is that it's like, muscle cell, right? Round. Um, you stimulate it, okay, and then it's like growing. And then at some point, it's like this stimulus is only going to take you so far. Now it's going to start to atrophy. But you catch it right before it atrophies into like the red, essentially. So
Hmm.
that's what muscle maintenance is. Muscle maintenance is just basically it's growing, shrinking, but at the end, it's kind of relatively the same. Whereas obviously, muscle gain is expands and yeah, it shrinks as well in between sessions, but we catch it right before and we keep playing that game into the green. Um, so you're growing all the time when you are in a caloric deficit, right? It's hard to understand that, but it's like no, a human body, like nothing is stagnant. There's either this direction or that direction. That's it. Um, so yeah, surplus. How much do you need? Not much. And I'd say if you are at a body fat level that your body probably doesn't mind being at, you can probably power a lot of those muscular adaptations through stored body fat. Now, the issue is most people aren't real with themselves in regards to like what is that body fat level that really has you feeling like a tiger, basically, right? Um, but if you don't mind living there, like you can make great progress without having to play that back and forth game. Um, And in regards to anecdotes, like people that who I have seen do this, like elite powerlifters, like if you follow them throughout their career, they're not even using S tier movements to grow because that's not the option. That's not the objective of the game.
Yeah.
But the progression is right, that's a big one. You follow them long enough, eventually you're just like, bro, I just don't know how much longer he can stay at this weight class. Like he is running out of space. And so you see a lot of recomping. Some of the most muscular drug-free athletes on this planet are powerlifters, um, and they don't get the luxury of having to, like bulk hardcore. They can't in their sport. I will say this: I do think assertive surpluses time and a place, but it's more of a keeping you engaged sort of deal. So for me, I bulked, I dreamer bulked, and I think what it really did for me is that it was just a cool body to wear. It was cool to see myself. Like, it kept me really engaged, perhaps maybe at a time where that's what I needed to
Yeah.
stick around, right? So yeah, it's like okay, like dude, yeah, you gained 50 pounds on your bench press, but also 20 pounds of body weight. That's where most of it came from. But the kid's excited, and he's staying in the gym, and now he's got his eyes set on 315, and
Exactly.
he's a lifter for life. So maybe for young people, like the assertive bulks are great because if you're bulking the way I am, it's like, bro, you're gonna have to be so patient, like so patient, and be okay with I don't know adding 8 reps to 4 sets across a 12-week block. You can't convince young people to do that, I think, sometimes.
I also feel like there is an interesting point though. It almost seems like you like when you're trying to give advice, you have to bucket people almost like this person's a beginner, this person's a recreational intermediate lifter, this is my peer of mine who's a pro bodybuilder, and then the type of nuance and context in your advice and conversation is naturally going to change based on who your audience is.
Yeah, that's why sometimes giving out generic advice are just like, all right, like you just have to pick the 3 most common profiles that you'll see. But that's where having a coach really comes in handy because they can get to the bottom of you. We are snowflakes to some extent.
All right, next one here. The SARM Goblin generation has been challenging for me to observe. Often the physiques produced could have been generated without these often volatile compounds.
Yeah, I love to see the young folks lifting. Like it's so cool to me that it's a cool thing to do now. Like it wasn't that way. Like Gen Z, you hear this. I haven't confirmed the data, but I guess they don't drink or party like millennials did, right? Um,
Yeah.
and I
I
see it.
think I think what was cool when I was in high school, like in my image, is not cool anymore. It was definitely cool then, but
Yeah.
it's not cool now.
And lifting is cool. Like I used to get so much flack for it, right? For it's like actually I'd rather go. I'm 22 here. Go train legs tonight than like go party with you guys. That you know, but I see it now and I think it's great. But there is so everyone I know from my generation. So I trained at two gyms. One was like mostly like the hood gym, but then I'd go to this place called Castro Valley that didn't even want to be a part of the Alameda County in the Bay Area. And these were all like middle class kids with like access to things. Um, and bro, most of them don't even lift no more. Like they don't lift no more. So that's what I don't want to see, just because it's so normalized. It's just part of like your starter kit now. It's like everyone does it. That yeah, eventually it's like you just you can't do it no more. It's like partying sober. It's like why would you? You've tried it that way. It's like now you're here at a rave and you're the only sober person. Like that's hard. So, and you've seen yourself in a certain way.
Mm,
It's it's yeah. It's just hard to get again. Like the the folk, the dreamer bulk used to be like the SARMs in my day for natural lifters. It's like this is
sure.
how I'm going to progress very rapidly. It's not all muscle, but I'll be significantly stronger. I'll look big.
People will notice that I'm a larger individual.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And now it's these things and you know again there's just not researched as much as we would like. They're maybe a little bit too accessible from what I've seen. So I worry for these folks and we need to find a way to convince them that, you know, like there's never going to be a point in your life like right now where this is where you can make the most progress. Like you don't realize like how stress free you are. You don't realize how much time you got. You don't realize that yes, this takes some resources, but not as much as people think. Like it's not as expensive as you, Planet Fitness will do you just fine, bro. Can tuna, you got this, right? Um, yeah, so it's I just I want to see this like pan out for that gen. It's just it's so hard when it's so
There's
normalized.
and there's a lot of pressure, I think, because of things like Instagram and they're seeing their peers get big fast when maybe in the past it was more like you would only judge yourself by like your high school friends and
Yeah,
maybe there's like a couple of people there but now you're seeing everyone. I don't know, I just imagine there's additional pressure and easy access to things.
it's so hard, man. Yeah, it's funny. Like there's this I think she was a writer. She was a political activist. Her name was Jean Kilborn, and she did a lot of work on how, yeah, the media just gives women a real hard time. Like
Yeah.
it's the root. This was like in the 70s, 80s, and it's so wild to me that like fast forward, like media we saw as like this, you know, it's a person, but it's not really a person and now we kind of do this to ourselves over social media. It's like we're just here making each other like miserable, basically. And especially like young folks. Like I think sometimes, like literally, that's what the feed is for. Is like to make you feel like here's something that you don't have that you just need, and it will make your life 100% better, fix everything. You will be worthy of love, and so on and so on. It's hard to be a young person today because like for us it's hard, man. And we kind of got eased into this. We saw it develop and we kind of know that okay, like that's enough scrolling for the day. But for young folks coming up, man, love that lifting is normalized, but I don't like the way it's framed on social media.
And how about on your end? Do you feel like, I know you've mentioned like I'm going to be better 10 years from now, like with no drugs, with no TRT. Do you ever feel pressure there, or is it just too against your identity and what you view as being authentic with this process?
You know, it's gotten to the point where it just can't be about you forever, right? And this is this is where this is the conversation that if you think you're doing something you truly love, like you bring it up to yourself. This situation where, okay, for some reason you bought a a lotto ticket. Is that what they're called? And you won, right? Okay, now you got 500 million in the bank. Are you still going to be doing that thing that you say you love? And so I thought about that with like natural bodybuilding. It's like, okay, what would I do if I won that money? Like, I'm like, all right, for sure, I'm starting a Fed. Like,
Cool.
love y'all Feds, everything y'all doing. I'll hire some of you guys, but I'm running this show now. Um, and then it's like, oh, would you stay natural? Because like now it's like you could probably leverage a lot of these drugs and get all the blood work you want, have the
You have your own doctor at home monitoring you, have you on an IV, whatever you want.
dude, it'd be as well done as it can be, right? But no, I don't think I would. I don't think I would because, again, like my bodybuilding is not my bodybuilding anymore. Like I want it to be out there, and I want people to, um, yeah, it's like I need to keep this thing going to inspire other folks, like whether it's young or whether it's old. And I'm going to ride this thing until I've mentioned this. This is what I think as of now, right? Till like the wheels start to fall off, and I'm no longer Air Jordan. I am now like MJ post baseball, and I'm like, now I got a mid game because I can't fly the way I used to. It's like I know I'm gonna have to alter my game at some point. Um, and at some point, there's going to be nothing I can do, and I'm just kind of on the bench cheering the guys, and I'm like the mascot on the team. Cool. Um, like I've come to grips with that. I think loving some things also that's like being able to let it go and pass it on to the next gen. So, yeah, at this point, I'm stuck doing it this way, but also my frontal lobes are quite developed at this age. Like young people, how many dumb things that our friends convince us to do that in hindsight you're like, oh, bro,
There are
that's
some pictures that I am really happy are not on the internet. It would be very incriminating from like a grade 9 and a 10. Like they're pretty bad, and I'm glad they're sitting in someone's drawer, nowhere to be found.
love. Yeah, there was physical pictures
It's
that
physical pictures,
yeah.
exactly. And they're just sitting somewhere. I don't know where they are, but I'm glad they're not on the internet. Um, I was going to say, though, that MJ did take PEDs. If you remember at halftime in Space Jam, he had Michael's secret water or whatever, and then he jumped full court and dunked on the Monstars. So, I mean, even he had his moments there.
I blocked that part out.
It was actually just water and courage. When you finished the movie, there was nothing in there. It was the will to it.
So they say. So they say.
All right. So bodybuilding is based on standards and the eye of the judge. What is your Mount Rushmore? The four less known muscles that you find to be impressive on the physique, and maybe your peers would, but the general population doesn't talk about or notice.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. So you done your homework, man. You always do. I like delts. Delts are just like the number one. Like you look at guys like Usain Bolt, Dwight Howard. Like they both had these crazy delts that just, especially on a bipedal animal, it just looks super impressive when like your head's here and your delts are there. So delts. I think men and women delts, like they taper up the rest of your body. Um, like it's not until women see muscular women in like dresses that they're like, oh shoot, like that, like the delts are really tying everything in. Like it's so important. So delts for sure. I'd say uh the teres major is highly underrated,
Okay.
um, because it's the widest part of your back. Like it looks so elegant on athletes, like especially athletes with like tank tops. Like there's a delt, and then there's this little ball on the side that there's just something about that muscle that you look at it and you're like, it does something important. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it does. Like hey, very human throwing motions, it plays a role in that. But yeah, I love teres majors. Like a lot of people think lats are the thing for back width. Yes, but I always think when there's a nice teres major, it just looks so much more complete and beautiful. I think of the lines like in the old '80s Corvette. Like that's what it looks like to me. Um, and then the sartorius, I love the sartorius. Like you see it on a lot of sprinters when they have the side pictures and like the inner thigh. It's that
Okay.
one muscle that looks like basically a pipe coming down your leg. Um, yeah, that one is just, again, it just speaks of it's the longest muscle in the body, so it's like super
Oh wow.
obvious.
Okay.
Um, but it's just, you look at it and you're like, this has an important job. This person is like lean enough where I can see this thing, and it just has a way of like flickering at all times because it does play at least a minor role in a whole lot of functions in the lower body. So uh, and then I'd say, you know what, I go back and forth with these. Um, yeah, I think glutes are gonna. I'm putting today is the next one, just because I guess you see someone with like muscular glutes and it's like, okay, like they're healthy, they're able to move, they can do things. Right. Whenever I see someone, especially men with like these atrophied like little glutes, like the little jeans are just hanging.
Why are you calling me out? Okay.
Well, I just think back pain. I think back pain. I'm like, ooh,
Mm,
he does everything with his erectors, basically. Um, but yeah, glutes are just I mean, they're part of the NFL draft. They rate the bubble. I don't
no,
know if
they
you ever
don't.
seen
Do
it.
they?
Yeah,
No
they're like
way.
nice high bubble. Yeah, it's
That's jokes.
because there's just something there that just predicts how well this thing can move, right? Um, so yeah, I don't think the original one like had glutes for me when I made this list, but I'm turning things around. Like, all right, glutes are okay. Yeah. I think men and women both look better in their clothes with them, but also like holistically speaking, like man, show me someone with like good strong glutes, they could probably move quite well and they don't have back pain.
Nice. So we were just talking about like what would you and your peers think, and that actually made me think of like something like the NBA All-Star game, right? You get votes from the fans, the players, and the media. So kind of in that limelight, like who is it most important that you have respect from? Is it the general population who lifts? Is it your competitor peers, or is it, the judges and the media?
Um Man, it goes both ways, man. It does. I think part of me, because it's not until I'll run into someone and it catches me off guard that maybe they're not trying to go this deep into it, right? They're parent that just started trying to take better care of themselves, and there was something about the way I presented information out to them that really made a difference, and it was a strong contributor. Like that stuff, because it's truly what's the most important part of your life, your health. So whenever you do that for people like that's regardless of the goal. Like they might think that the goal is, since it's not competitive bodybuilding, that it ain't gonna hit Bert in a different way. But I get it, man. So yeah, I think anytime you inspire someone's like life trajectory in a positive way, that hits hard. But in my everyday life, like the people who like when I'm aware of this fact constantly, is yeah, the respect for my peers, man. When your peers respect your game, that's just different, man. Because they understand what it takes to excel, and they understand like the pressure that if you are reasonably good at something, you are going to experience every time you decide to prep. So yeah, respect from your peers, like just hits so different.
For sure. From a basketball standpoint, I always think of like Kevin Durant. Like he doesn't really always get a ton of respect from the media, but the his peers only have good things to say. They're like, he lives this, he loves ball. That's what he does.
Yep, yep.
And like that's the highest compliment to him, right? Like he cares about basketball, he watches basketball, he plays basketball, and he does it at a high level and is respected by every current NBA player.
Yeah, he had a Ant Man like a little boy out.
Yeah, yeah, you
Yep.
saw him at the
Right.
Olympics, right, with him?
Yeah,
He's, like, following
yeah,
around Katie.
yeah. So no, yeah, your peers just again they understand what you're going through at the ground level. So um, yeah, I think when I got that before, because I think I got respect from my peers before I was a like a worthy pro.
Okay.
And like to me that was the right orders. Like they could see the potential. They could see that okay, this was going in some specific direction. That I was doing certain things right. Like that was very reinforcing. Like I'll take that over any title, like any day.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting about things like social media is you can have the respect of your peers and you can lose that respect if you are just chasing views or just trying to get as many fans as possible. So there's a trade-off there, right? Like, do you want to be liked and respected by the people who are important to you, or do you want to chase as much money as possible? And it's different for everyone, but there's a trade-off there.
Absolutely. Yeah. No. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. 100%, man.
All right, I'm gonna throw up a bunch of pictures on the screen here. Tell me your first thoughts of each one.
Right. Okay. We'll start left, top left, right? That was Lee Norton. He was 19 there, I believe. I think that was in his parents' home. But yeah, that was I think first time I saw that picture was like teambodybuilding.com, which was sub a sister company to bodybuilding.com. And Lane was a writer there. Man, was it like just like popping at the time. Like a lot of people who went on to do something were like teens just kind of getting rolling. But that picture there was think it I saw that and I saw how much more muscular Lane was than me because we were about similar ages. And I'm like, man, at some point you do have to specialize. Like you can't just be doing everything. And I just didn't really want to come to grips with the fact that like I think bodybuilding's your thing because I still found it kind of silly. But seeing this picture, I'm like, man, nah, I'm going all in. I have to. And then to the right, you have Ben Goins. Honestly, I think he made conditioning like there was a lot of guys getting peeled at the pro level, but he actually put it out there. Like, and this was like in the late 2000s. So he taught people a lot of things. Like when you think of like the story of natural bodybuilding, like it can't be told without mentioning Ben Goins because you actually got to see what lean looked like up close and like follow him doing it and see that it could be done. So yeah, the man 100% changed the game. Let's see. Yeah, he was like Steph Curry in that respect with 3 pointers. Like that was Ben. And
Nice.
then what's his name? That's Bob. No, Rodney Hilaire. That's Rodney Hilaire. Yeah, some of the biggest arms you'll see on a natural bodybuilder. He was a track guy too, so I really looked up to him. But he was one of the first natty physiques that I'm like, okay, like I can see this. Like it's like the right amount of freaky, but still aesthetic. Uh, Rodney, total beast. 20-inch arms, like lean as a
Wow.
girl, and he's not a super tall guy either. I think he's a little shorter than I am. Uh Oh, and then that's Greg Rando down there, blind bodybuilder, crazy. Uh,
Crazy to be a blind bodybuilder.
yeah, yeah, he must just love the lifestyle, love the way training feels, the way it makes him feel. And not only that, but you really have to be in tune with what's taking place. You can't see the work, right? You just okay, read the braille, and I think this is good enough. Let's go. I think I'm peaked. Let's do it. Uh, but yeah, he doesn't get to see it. He doesn't get to see the art, but he's all about it, man. He was quite effective in his heyday. Next one's my boy Derek. Derek, kind of like Lane, he played a vital role in my trajectory. I remember seeing this picture, and I'm like, at some point, I have to get a close up, most muscular, and so I did it, and yeah, I think it was a little better than Derek's, but nevertheless, at this point in time, I remember looking at this picture. I'm like, that looks fake. That looks like yeah, Joe skin, you know. Uh, but yeah, awesome bodybuilder in his own respect. And then on the right, Bobby Pandora, which I need to put this picture on a T-shirt because that's just so. Dude, he wasn't doing this for any of the clout, almost, right? Because you're just kind of this weirdo that would you do things in your on your farm in your backyard. Uh, they they were very ineffective methods, like carrying your brother up flights of stairs. But I mean, look what they came up with, man. So yeah, pioneer, like, thinking of Lane and Ben Goins and how they changed everything. It's like it's easy to be very disconnected from these people way back when. It's like, how do they relate to me? But it's like, no, no, no. But, they 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 totally played a role in like where you are at today.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to how you were talking about like making an impact on people's lives. Like you could be making an impact on someone who's a recreational lifter and it's helping their health, but it could also be someone who wants to be a pro bodybuilder, right? They see
Yep.
the shredded pictures of Alberto Nunez and be like, I want to do that, right? Like they might have that in their top 5 pictures or whatever it might be.
Yeah, you never know when so you better act right. Like
Better actor, yeah.
yeah, that's something I constantly remind myself. Like whether it's here or if I'm training at the gym, it's like someone might be watching you train for the first time. You better like you don't want rumors spreading that Bert will be sandbagging, man.
Just jokes. All right, I'm gonna end today with a fun question here. First, who should be the NBA MVP this year, and who do you want to win the title?
Ooh, man, that is hard. The way Shea does it is like people don't realize like he's not as athletic as people think. You
He's
know,
shifty. He's shifty. You know what I
he's
mean? Yeah.
got a great IQ. It's just that since it's mostly scoring, I mean, he facilitates a lot of things. Um, man, that team wouldn't be what it is without him. You take him off that team, it's just not close to the same team. Um, but there's just whenever there is, and I've learned this through like Kobe and Harden. Whenever there is a guy in the league who can just put up 40 if you need to, like how valuable of an asset that is so underrated, especially in today's game.
Yeah.
Even though 40's kind of lost his luster.
40's like 30 now. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah. I think for I hate saying it because like I love watching Joker play. He's just
It's
like you want a
unreal.
kid to play ball right. You look at Joker and it's just like, bro, like he's making up for so much deficiencies. Like in regards to like he's not as strong as people think. He's just a big dude. He's not athletic. Uh, but
He's got long arms though. Like he
he's got
does
long
have,
arms.
yeah, he's big and he's long, but yeah, he's just his IQ's through the roof.
But same thing with Shea. Shea's got some long arms too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, I'm gonna go with Shea just because uh I've been trying to appreciate that a little bit more just because you can look at it as it's just scoring. It's just scoring. It's very easy for us at even no ball to like fall into that. And it's like, no, the game at the end is about a bucket. You have a prolific scorer on your team, changes everything. Changes everything. So yeah, and Shea's not afraid to step up. I love that part too. Like whatever his team needs him to do, like he will do from him.
And Shea's a good Canadian boy, so I like that.
Yeah, that is that too. Yeah. Having foreigners taking over the NBA, man. But
Yeah, but Jokic is top 5, I think, in points, rebounds, assists, and steals. Like I was looking at his stats compared to like 2012 LeBron, and it was just better than LeBron's MVP season easily. It's just the stats are crazy. Like they're hard to wrap my head around.
yeah, Hakeem, like he's in, I think, still in the top 10 in steals, like career wise. So whenever a center is like stealing, like you're
It's a big
just kind of
deal.
like, that's a sharp dude up there. Like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's hard, man. I think the stats are dude, it's just such a rough year. I don't think there's ever been. I remember the last award, I think, being like anything was co rookie of the year with Jason
Jason
Kidd.
Kidd and Grant Hill.
Grant Hill. That's
That was
right.
it,
Yeah,
right?
that was
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
93. I don't know, man. I'm old.
So we just have that because I think yeah,
Yeah,
it's
like Shea's deserving. He has the best team. He's been that, but Jokic, it's just like an unreal year. I think he's shooting 40% from 3. Like it's
it's such a weird year that it's like it should just be an exception. Like
who do you want to win?
um uh yeah. It could be I think OKC because these young kids do it right. I think that's gonna be pretty awesome, you know. Um and I think maybe athletes are starting to catch on to this that it's like you can chase the bread like during your career, but if you really want to chase the bread, it's like you got to become a lifelong winner. That pays forever. Like it's Jordan's championships. It's like it's Brady Super Bowls. Mahomes gonna be hooked up like that. If you're just like classified as a winner, like once the career is over, ooh, like that's where the real money will come in, right? Like for as long as you like. So hopefully these kids see that and they're like, yo, like
I'm gonna
let's try
win.
to stay together and we're young and have a few runs for sure. Especially now that they got a bigger guy in there. So I would like to see them just to see the young squad do well. But at the other side, I wouldn't mind Braun somehow.
Me too, man. I like Luca. Anyone but Boston is how I feel. If you're from Boston, I'm sorry, but I feel like anyone but Boston is what I'm
And
hoping for.
but Boston's so good; they're easy to hate.
Yeah, they're easy to hate.
They've gotten to that level. Like the Patriots, I appreciate them now in hindsight. I'm like, man, those some good formulas you guys had out there. But yeah, if like the only way they win though, of course, is Luca just needs to be Luca, right? And Braun might have to be carried, and he's gonna have to be okay with that. But at the end,
His longevity is insane. LeBron's, it's insane.
yeah, he's just gonna have to go get out the way, and hopefully, like Luca finds his.
I mean,
rhythm.
Luca got Dallas to the finals last year. If he can do that again, and you have LeBron there, anything's possible.
Yeah, even with like a less experienced center, that's probably the one part of the team that kind of freaks me out a little.
Well, that trade didn't go through for Mark Williams on Charlotte. That is like he's solid. That would have been a big difference. Yeah.
Super solid, but injury prone too, though. So
Oh no, like incredibly injury prone. He plays like 20 games a year. I have him on my fantasy basketball team, so I know. I know what he does. He's great for 15 games a year.
No, it's getting good, man, and like I'm even into the women's game now. Like basketball is just such a beautiful sport.
Yeah, I've been watching more. Like you have a daughter, I have a daughter, so it's like I'm trying to put that on too, like the college stuff, and be like, this is a big deal. This is like women's sports. Like, watch it. We're watching it too. We're not just watching the NBA. I don't know all the players, but just trying to do that to show like, hey, this is important as well. So
no, I'm getting there. Like Juju's so sick with it, man.
All right, Berto, always a pleasure, man. Where can everyone find you?
3dmusclejourney.com, Nunez 3DMJ on Instagram. Our YouTube is starting to pop off a little bit. That's one of those where we just haven't leveraged it the way we should have these last few years, but it's climbing up. We're starting to rebuild an audience there, and it's a great way to just share longer form that's like doesn't feel like longer form. So yeah, that's where you can find me. Maybe I'll be prepping this year. I'm pretty sure I will be. And we'll see if I made any progress.
I think you have to, man. I think it has to happen.
Yeah, I think so too, man. Yeah. It's not for me anymore. Like I said, it's to give away.
All right, man. Take care.